Welcome to the Reese and Tia podcast. You know, I'm Maurice,
I'm Tia.
and we're going to be bringing you different topics based on, relationships. Now, Tia, let the people know as far as what you've been doing
My
all these
credentials.
years, your credentials. Thank
All
you.
right, all right. So again, I'm Tia Jones Medine. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have a private practice where I work with couples, individuals, and families. I'm also working towards my doctorate degree in marriage and family therapy. So I have a plethora of knowledge when it comes to talking about relationships and working with others in terms of their relationships. Reese, why don't you tell the people about your credentials?
Now, I wish that I would have told my credentials first because they're not as elaborate as hers, but mine is a lot of life experience. I was married, raised a family. I also wrote a book as well, just talking about my personal experience. So I'm more or less coming from the angle of experience, real life experience. And so we try to bring these two worlds together, the professional and the experience, and see how we're going to do and take this journey on and maybe help out some of you guys out here just with these two environments brought together.
Absolutely. So, what we're going to start with today is unrealistic expectations in relationships. That tends to be a common trend nowadays. You're seeing videos on Instagram, YouTube about, people popping up wanting these things that they don't necessarily bring to the table. So, we thought this would be the first interesting topic to bring up. So, we're going to start with that unrealistic expectations in relationships. Reese, do you want to start?
Um, yeah, I mean, do you have any experience, maybe like a situation that we could bounce off?
Absolutely. So, obviously, as a therapist, what I have found is that a lot of young individuals they tend to want their significant other or their potential significant other to go like above and beyond. So they're asking for, you're going to hear the typical, I want six figures, him to make six figures. I want this and that. I want him to, pay for everything. Just these things where it's kind of like it's all about me, me, me. People are not so much focused on the other person so much as they're focused on what they can get. Is
Right,
what I'm noticing.
right. I noticed that too. Like, and I feel like it's just very unfair, especially with social media. I feel like social media takes a big part on just the expectation, even within communication, right? Because it's like you expected me to know you had this thing in your mind for me to do. And
Right.
so then when it's not done, now you feel let down. So
Mm.
how do you avoid that?
That's an interesting thought there. I think in order to avoid that, we'd have to. It's really communication is where it comes down to. Like
Hmm.
people are not communicating with each other, and because they're not communicating with each other, things are getting misconstrued. So I think a lot of issues that revolve around relationships and things of that nature could be resolved if people just simply communicated.
Communicate. But what do you need to really like communicate, right? Because I hear people say you got to communicate. But then what happens when the person is angry and emotion is communicating and not the issue?
That's interesting as well. So I think with a situation like that, again, everything simply boils down to communication. So if somebody is angry, what I've noticed a lot of times is clients will sit and stew in it versus
Mm-hmm.
going to that person,
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that, you know, if you sit and stew in it, you're going to have all these ideas that pop up in your head, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to make the situation worse.
Right.
So what I find is I tell my clients, okay, you're upset at this person, you misconstrued what they said. Go and take some time to process it.
Right.
Get yourself together and then come back and address the situation.
Okay.
Again, it boils down to communication.
Got you. So communication would be number one in your opinion, far as trying to reconcile the situation.
Absolutely. I mean, what other ways could there be?
Well, through my experience, I used to feel like communication was it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But through some of my experience, I now feel like forgiveness is the one thing, right? Because forgiveness is the key. A good friend of mine, he passed away, was a bishop, and Bishop Jones actually, he told me that forgiveness was the key because
Mm-hmm.
in order to practice any other virtue,
Mm-hmm.
you have to forgive. Because if you have that anger there,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be willing to even listen, to even receive, to even process a different perspective of the situation. Meaning, so you have this expectation. Now this person upset you, and now you're upset,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't even understand that. Wait a minute. This was in my head. This
Mm-hmm.
person never even knew what I was expecting them to do. And if you can't have that peace where you calm down to forgive them, to now accept this new download, so to say, of like, oh, this wasn't intentional. They just didn't know.
Right.
How I feel like in my experience that it's hard to move past that because a lot of times what happens, we sweep things under the rug. Oh, it's cool, solid, I got it, cool. And then we do like this kind of what's the word for the terminology? The passive aggressive communication comes into play, right?
Absolutely.
So that's my experience with
I mean, I agree with you. Forgiveness absolutely is big. It is a priority, and that's why again that comes with that processing.
Right.
Because I feel like if you are angry, for instance, if you were angry with me, us sitting right here trying to hash it out right after it happened is not going to fare well. So I think in forgiveness, that's why a lot of times I tell my clients sit and process it 1st. Process it. Think about the situation. Think about ways in which you contributed to the situation. What did you do wrong in this instance? And I think in that processing, they can also work on that factor of forgiveness as well.
Yeah. And I think too, not taking things so personal. Me and you talked off camera before about the whole what's right and what's wrong and just getting out of the way of that, because understanding that if you hurt your partner, if you hurt them, right, that's where the wrong can be considered because your person is hurt. Because what's wrong for you may not be wrong for somebody else. So is right or wrong a real thing or it's just opinionated?
That's fair. But I have a question for you, and I want to table what we just talked about. Let me ask you this. Now, obviously, we're not young. We're not in our 20s, not in our 30s either. But we have some life experience. And what I'm noticing with a lot of young people today, and I'm just trying to go back to the topic, is that they have unrealistic expectations when it comes to dating. So for you in talking to women out there and things like that, what are you seeing as far as unrealistic expectations from a man's point of view, if any?
Well, the same thing we discussed. I mean, just having these like Instagram, social media period. I don't even want to name just one particular one, but just social media period put this false expectation that men have to do this, and it's a false expectation on women as well because men feel like, oh, your woman has to look like this, So I just think about just stripping down and like we really just need to strip down and just go back to the basics. Like we just have been overextended, overstimulated on a lot of things, and it just doesn't make it just really doesn't make sense. Like you said at the beginning, this guy needs to make six figures. Well, it's some people who make six figures who don't know how to manage their money.
This is true.
And so it's just then it's like, oh well, what kind of man are you if you can't take care of me, right? And I make more money than you. Well, this man doesn't make six figure, but he manages money well, right? And then he come into your life and he teaches you how to manage your six figures. That's not valuable.
Very valuable.
But we don't take in consideration of that because you're looking at him as, oh, he makes less than, so he's less than, and that's what the world teaches us.
Right.
And we got to just get away from that because I feel like we're all missing great opportunities to be with great people.
Absolutely.
Because of the facade of you don't do this or you're not taking me to this restaurant or you don't make this kind of money. So no, it's crazy.
Yeah. I could say this for a lot of women, and what I've noticed again, I'm watching social media and things of that nature, is that a lot of women, now a lot of Black women in particular, are single. A lot of them are single. And a lot of them, and this is interesting, my husband actually brought this up, you don't see women of other races saying, I'm an independent woman and I can do this on my own. You don't see that. But with the Black community, you see a lot of women like putting up this image of, oh, I can do this by myself. Oh, I'm an independent woman. I don't need a man in my life. So I just find that it's very interesting that our culture talks that way, but other cultures don't. Other cultures embrace.
Why is that? Doesn't it feel really aimed and direct?
Yes, it
does.
does.
Because as the Black community, like we're taught to be tough, and so tough comes off as anger, right? So now every emotion is expressed through anger. If you have, other than happy, if you're hurt, you're angry. If you're sad, you're angry. If you're frustrated, you're angry, right? And so now it's the angry Black woman. But I think what we have to understand is tapping into the the real part of who we are. Like if
Mhm.
I love you
Mhm.
and you show me that you're hurt,
Mhm.
I should be able to coddle you. I should be able to come to you and understand, like, why are you hurt? Not, well, some people can stand on the face of, well, I was right.
Mhm.
So because I'm right, you just need to take it.
Mhm.
But just
Mhm.
because you're right
Mhm.
don't mean you're always received.
That's true.
So when you speaking to your wife, is it more important for you to be right or is it important for you to be received?
Right.
Right?
Right.
I can like steak and eggs, but if you serve it to me on a trash can lid, I don't want it.
Right. I got you. I understand what you're saying. I mean, that makes perfect sense. It
All
makes
right.
perfect sense. I just think there is just a missing piece when it comes to our culture and when it comes to relationships. And what I'm noticing is that, again, we already know about the broken black family and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff and how that's a big thing. But just these, I don't, again, I go back to videos and things like that I've watched, and I'm just looking at these women and they're just touting all of these things, their accolades and things like that they've done, and all these things that they feel are important. But then when they get to a certain age, they feel like they missed out.
They missed out.
They missed out. And it's just so interesting to me to see these things. And I even have, women surrounding me that are in the same boat, you know what I'm saying? It's just interesting just to see that, to look at that and realize that we are impressionable. We are an impressionable culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are so heavily focused on everything that's around us that we tend to focus on the wrong things and we miss out.
Yeah.
We miss
But
out.
why are we focusing on the wrong
That's
things?
the thing. I'm not quite sure.
It's social media.
I
It's
mean,
crazy.
that's true, but I think we were still. I mean, before social media, even in the late '60s and stuff, when families started to kind of dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even a little earlier than that, we started to miss the big picture. So
But
it was before social
But
media.
you know what that social media was
made it
then?
worse.
Social media made it worse, but you know what social media was then? The
What's that?
TV, the shows, the
Yeah.
influence, right?
Yeah.
The programming is real. Like you got to understand the mentality because the TV or
Mm-hmm.
the radio says this is the standard. This is
Right.
what you should be doing.
Right.
This is what it should be,
Right.
right? And so what happens is we now set out in life with this image in our mind that, this is what life should be.
Yeah.
And so now we hold ourselves to this standard.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
now it's problems. Now
Yeah.
it's not right. Now here
Yeah.
comes depression.
Yeah.
Here comes anxiety,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
now this thing told me that I
Mm-hmm.
need to be here by
Mm-hmm.
this time in my
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what is the cause of too much information? What is it?
I
What is
think
the effect of too much
Well, we're
information?
living in it.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's
Yeah.
it's mental health.
It's
That's
mental health. And I know you see it all the time. And that's
Mhm.
why your profession is so highly valued these days because people need it.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. And one of the things that I've also noticed again with unrealistic expectations is that it's falling on our kids now.
Yes.
And I'm just like, what is this world going to be like in the next 10, 15 years, to be honest?
Scary.
When our kids are grown.
Scary.
It's just like, I don't know. I just think about it, and I'm, this is going to sound real crazy, but I'm glad that I'm the age that I am, to be honest with you, because I don't know that I could make it in this world as a teen or a 20-year-old, given the expectations and things, and just the things that these kids are exposed to. Because you and I, when we were kids, there was no social media, right? There was nobody had a cell phone when we were kids. That was not a thing. We were outside playing games, and the expectation was you listen to adults and you shut your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That was the expectation. Once you got older, you got a job, you did what you needed to do, you found somebody decent. But now it's like people, they expect so much more out of life, and I'm just like, they don't realize that living simply is easy. It's peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But people are so busy chasing these unrealistic things because of what they see on social media. It's just, that's crazy.
I think the caveat of that is like, I think it's nothing wrong with wanting more, in
No.
my opinion, right?
No.
And I think if you don't want to live a simple life and you want to have an extravagant life, that's fine too. But I think when you start putting that desire on others, right? It's important that you know your partner, right? Because you could be with someone who is okay being simplistic. For instance, my mother is very simplistic. She lives a simplistic life. She's just as happy as you are driving in your Mercedes and in your $1 million house. Doesn't matter to her. She is cool. So we got to also understand who we're dealing with too, because just like it's okay for you to have the simplicity, it's okay for me to have the luxury. But when you try to combine those worlds and they clash, and you got to understand what it is, and now you're looking down on him or her because, or your partner, I should say, because of how you feel versus how they feel. That's when I think that it gets missed,
I mean, that's true. And I don't want anybody to get it twisted, if that's still a word. I don't want to get it
twisted.
twisted, but what I'm saying is, how old am I, right? I'm dating myself here. But what I'm also saying is, no, there's nothing wrong with the lavish life. But what you're going to find is most people cannot afford the lavish life.
Yeah,
And so they're
absolutely.
doing everything they can to live that life, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
fake me out. And we know it
Fake me
is.
out. Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. No, if you have the means to live the life you want to live, by all means, live it. But I think we're so wrapped up in this that people that can't afford to pay their rent are buying $1,000 tickets to
Yeah,
concerts.
come on.
That's the
Come
kind of
on.
stuff that I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
And why? Why are they doing it? Because they see, oh, this is what you got to do. This is what's happening. My friend over here, so and so bought
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
understanding that they ain't pay
Mm-hmm.
their rent either,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
to live this life and do this thing. So, what is the cure to it all,
Yeah.
Miss Jones? What is the
What is the
cure
cure
to it
to
all,
it all?
Miss
If I
Levine?
man, if I had the cure, I'd package it up and sell it. I'd tell you I would.
Oh,
But you know what? That's hard to say. I mean, that's really something you cannot just think about on the fly. Like you have to really think about what the cure to that would be. And I think that a lot of people, I think it comes from a lot of a lack of self confidence, a lack of
mm-hmm,
esteem for
mm-hmm,
individuals.
mm-hmm.
So I think if we were in a place where we can kind of uplift people, and I know it's impossible to uplift everybody, but if everybody was in a place where they'd be comfortable with who they are and where
That's
they
the part.
are,
That's the part.
we'd be in a different place.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we can't get someone to be uh, comfortable with themselves. Like it takes a lot of work, and I'm sure you can attest to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I see it every day with just some of the struggles that people go through day in and day out, whether it's relationships or again their expectations and things like that. I mean, it's not a day that goes by that I don't talk to individuals about their relationships and get them to understand that just some of these things you're asking for are not they're not realistic. You're not and I think another thing is that people want to. We live in a world now, and I think this is social media again, something about social media, a lot of dreamers.
Hmm.
We live in a world where there's just a lot of dreamers,
Dreamers.
but barely any doers.
Hmm.
And that's a problem.
Hmm.
Again, another unrealistic expectation. I'll have all of these things that I want, but I ain't doing nothing about it.
Doing
I'm
nothing
dreaming. I
about
ain't
it.
doing nothing but talking. You know
Talking.
what I'm saying?
Because it feels good to talk, right?
Yeah, it feels good to talk, but
Everybody likes to talk. It feels good.
well, listen. Faith, what is it? Faith without works is dead.
That's what it says.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but so um it's funny, man. I was just speaking again earlier off camera. Like I actually went through a situation with just an unrealistic expectation. Like,
Hmm.
how did you expect me to know this? And it's like some people really want you to be like mind readers
Yeah, they do.
sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when you point it out, you so stuck in how you feeling and what should have happened
Mm-hmm.
that you can't even take a moment and say, you know what, it's all good.
Well, it's like you said before, though. You hit it on the head when you said it before. People want to be right.
People want to be right, and
Yeah.
that's it. They so stuck on wanting to be right.
Let me tell you this, and I think we'll end on this note if you're okay with that. What I tend to find is that people that want to be right are individuals, and again, this goes back to unrealistic expectations. They do not hold themselves accountable. They cannot accept accountability. And I think that's one of
Mm,
the big reasons why you have all these unrealistic expectations.
right. I agree. I agree because if you can take accountability, right, you can say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And here's the last thing too, right? When you have that kind of communication, if I say I love you,
Mm-hmm.
now I get to exercise that
Mm-hmm.
love, right? Because love is a verb. So I can forgive you now.
Mm-hmm.
But the arguing comes back and forth when somebody just want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
How can I show you that I can forgive
Mm-hmm.
if you put this facade of you never mess up or you never
Mm-hmm.
make a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
And what human being can really live on up to that?
All right. None. Not even themselves.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So that's our take today on unrealistic expectations in relationships. So thank you for watching our first video, episode 1
Episode 1.
of Reese and Tia. Thank you.
Don't
Don't
forget to like and subscribe. We got more content coming your way. Peace.